Carlos Alcaraz's coach told the Ultimate Tennis team a secret, and this secret explains why he became the world champion. But before learning the secret, they need to tell you this. Everyone who sees Carlos's 5 a.m. training is shocked, because what they see there isn't a normal tennis training. It's something completely different, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why Carlos's opponents struggle so much against him. At the 12-minute mark, Ultimate Tennis will reveal that special technique Carlos's coach shared with them. And at the 18-minute mark, they'll share that moment Carlos has never told anyone about. This is Ultimate Tennis, and today they're taking you into the secret world of tennis history's youngest world number 1, Murcia, Spain, 5 a.m. While the city is still sleeping, the lights are on at J.C. Ferrero Equilite Academy, and Carlos Alcaraz is already on the courts. So why 5 a.m.? This isn't just about discipline. There's something Carlos's coach Juan Carlos Ferrero discovered. Between 5 to 7 a.m., the human body's cortisol levels are at their highest. This means a natural energy burst, and Carlos uses this natural advantage. But here's the interesting part. Carlos isn't running around the court at 5 a.m. No, he's doing something completely different at that hour. The first 30 minutes are complete silence. Carlos closes his eyes and sits in the center of the court. Meditation, number visualization. He mentally recreates every match, every shot from his opponent, every reaction. He plays thousands of matches in his mind. Ferrero told Ultimate Tennis, "What separates Carlos from others is that before he even starts training, he's already played 50 matches mentally." But Carlos doesn't just visualize winning. He spends equal time visualizing losing. He sees himself making errors, falling behind in sets, facing match points against him. This trains his brain to handle pressure before it happens, and then the real training begins. But this isn't normal either. There are 3 fundamental things that separate Carlos's training from other players. First is chaos training. Normal players do organized, predictable training sessions. Nothing in Carlos's training is predictable. Carlos trains with 3 ball machines simultaneously, each programmed to hit different types of shots at random intervals. Why? Because nothing is predictable in matches. Djokovic's sudden drop shot, Nadal's unexpected angled shot. Carlos is ready for these because he constantly experiences chaos in training. Second is empathy training. Carlos mimics a different opponent's playing style every day. One day he plays like Djokovic, defense-focused, patient. The next day like Federer, aggressive, risk-taking. This isn't just technical. Carlos also enters that player's mindset. He studies their body language, their pre-serve routines, even their breathing patterns. He becomes them. As Ferrero says, to beat your opponent, you must first understand him. Carlos doesn't just study tennis techniques, he studies human psychology. Third is pressure training. There's constant pressure in Carlos's training, not just physical, but psychological. Coaches constantly talk, trying to distract him. Sometimes they even bring people to the stands to make noise. Carlos also trains while listening to different types of music. Sometimes classical, sometimes heavy metal, sometimes complete silence broken by sudden loud noises. Why? Because in matches, the crowd atmosphere constantly changes. The result? When Carlos plays in front of 15,000 people on center court, he's completely unaffected, because his training is much more challenging than any match atmosphere. The secret of Carlos's physical power isn't just in the gym. He does something completely different. After every training session, Carlos does breathing exercises for 20 minutes. But these aren't normal breathing exercises. It's the Wim Hof method adapted for tennis. Cold water, controlled breathing, and mental focus. With this technique, Carlos's oxygen utilization capacity is increased by 23%. So while other players get tired at the end of 5-set matches, Carlos gets even stronger. Then comes what Carlos calls contrast therapy. After breathing exercises, he spends 10 minutes in ice water at exactly 39 degrees Fahrenheit. Then, immediately after ice bath, Carlos spends 5 minutes in a sauna at 180 degrees Fahrenheit. This extreme temperature change triggers something called hormesis, a biological phenomenon where stress makes the body stronger. As Ferrero says, if you can stay in ice water for 10 minutes, you can play against Djokovic in the Wimbledon final. Carlos's nutrition program is also revolutionary. Instead of eating large meals, he eats small amounts every 90 minutes. His body is constantly fueled but never heavy. Before morning training, just one thing: homemade protein smoothie. It contains spinach, banana, protein powder, and a secret ingredient: royal jelly from Spanish bees. Royal jelly doesn't just give Carlos energy. It contains natural compounds that increase concentration and decision-making speed. This is why Carlos can process information so quickly during matches. Where does Carlos's mental strength come from? He uses techniques most athletes have never heard of. Every day after training, Carlos spends 30 minutes in what he calls failure visualization. He imagines his future failures in extreme detail. He sees himself losing matches, making double faults on important points, being booed by crowds, losing his ranking. And most importantly, he visualizes how he'll respond to each scenario. Ferrero told Ultimate Tennis, "Carlos is so prepared for failure that failure never surprises him, and someone who isn't surprised doesn't panic." Carlos also practices something called emotional regulation under stress. Using biofeedback equipment, Carlos trains himself to control his heart rate and stress hormones during simulated pressure situations. Carlos also practices something called perspective shifting. When he makes an error in training, he immediately changes his physical position, sometimes lying down, sometimes standing on one foot, sometimes closing his eyes. This trains his brain to see problems from multiple angles. This technique helped Carlos tremendously in the Wimbledon final. When he was 2 sets down, he didn't panic, because he had experienced that situation thousands of times in his mind, and he knew exactly how to respond. And now it's time to tell you that secret. What Ferrero shared with Ultimate Tennis that separates Carlos from every other player. Do you know what Carlos's special ability is? Ferrero said. He never makes the same mistake twice. Never. This is extraordinary. Because tennis is a game of errors. Even Federer repeated certain mistakes throughout his career. But Carlos is different. After every mistake, Carlos performs what Ferrero calls error archaeology. He doesn't just analyze what went wrong technically. He examines his emotional state, his thoughts, his physical sensations, even his breathing pattern at the moment of error. Then, Carlos creates what he calls a mistake vaccine, a mental and physical routine that prevents that specific error from happening again. Ferrero gave Ultimate Tennis a detailed example. When Carlos first played against Djokovic, he was too aggressive on important points. He analyzed this mistake and discovered it happened when he felt anxious about his serve. So he created a pre-serve routine that manages anxiety. Now he never makes that mistake. This is why Carlos develops so quickly. Every mistake becomes a strength. Other players repeat the same errors for years. Carlos eliminates them permanently. Carlos's opponent analysis goes far beyond watching match videos. Carlos studies every opponent's social media posts, not for entertainment, but for psychological intelligence. If Djokovic posts about family time, Carlos knows he might be more emotionally invested in the next match. If Nadal mentions an injury, Carlos adjusts his strategy to test those areas. Carlos also studies opponents' body language in extreme detail. He can predict when Djokovic is about to attempt a drop shot based on a barely noticeable shoulder position change. He knows when Nadal is in pain because his breathing pattern shifts slightly. But perhaps most remarkably, Carlos practices opponent simulation with actors. Professional actors study his upcoming opponents and portray their personalities, speech patterns, and behaviors. Carlos practices not just playing against their tennis style, but dealing with their psychological tactics. As Ferrero says, Carlos sees things other players miss. He reads opponents like books. It's almost supernatural. And now, Ultimate Tennis will share that moment Carlos has never told anyone about. 2023 Wimbledon Final. Carlos was 2 sets down. He was alone in the locker room, and he was crying. But this wasn't defeat crying. Carlos told Ultimate Tennis exactly what happened in that moment. I wasn't crying because I was losing. I was crying because I realized I'd been playing scared. Carlos explained, "For 2 sets, I was playing not to lose instead of playing to win. I was protecting something instead of fighting for something." But then Carlos did something that changed everything. He looked at himself in the mirror and said out loud, "You are not here to be safe. You are here to be great." Carlos told Ultimate Tennis, "At that moment, I thought about my father. I remembered the words he said when he first introduced me to the court." Carlos's father had told him, "Son, tennis won't beat you. Only you can beat yourself." In that locker room, Carlos realized he had been beating himself. He was playing Djokovic's game instead of his own game. He was trying to be perfect instead of being fearless. When Carlos returned to the court for the 3rd set, everything changed. He wasn't playing against Djokovic anymore. He was playing for the little boy who fell in love with tennis. Ultimate Tennis asked Carlos what he felt when he hit that winning shot. His answer was surprising: relief. Not because I won Wimbledon, but because I had finally stopped fighting myself and started fighting for myself. This story reveals the deepest secret of Carlos's success. He's not afraid to lose because he's more afraid of not trying his best. Looking to the future, Carlos's goals extend far beyond tennis rankings. He wants to revolutionize how athletes train mentally and physically. Carlos told Ultimate Tennis, "I want to prove that champions are made, not born, that anyone willing to do the work can achieve greatness." By age 25, Carlos wants to win 10 Grand Slams, but more importantly, he wants to inspire a generation of athletes to train their minds as intensively as they train their bodies. Carlos Alcaraz's success isn't magic. It's the result of systematic preparation, mental training, and an obsession with continuous improvement. The secret Ultimate Tennis discovered is this: Carlos has eliminated the gap between training and competing. His training is harder than his matches. His preparation is more intense than his performance. But the most important lesson isn't about tennis technique or physical training. It's about mindset. Carlos has trained himself to see obstacles as opportunities, failures as lessons, and pressure as privilege. If you want to apply Carlos's methods to your own life, start with one thing: embrace discomfort. Every day, do something that challenges you. Carlos doesn't avoid difficult situations. He seeks them out because he knows that's where growth happens. Ultimate Tennis hopes this video has shown you that greatness isn't about talent alone. It's about the willingness to prepare when others rest, to train when others play, and to grow when others make excuses. Subscribe to Ultimate Tennis for more exclusive insights into the minds of champions. Next week, they'll reveal Carlos's complete nutrition protocol and the science behind his energy management. What aspect of Carlos's training will you implement in your own life? Share in the comments below. Until next time, remember, champions are made in the dark so they can shine in the light. Vamos!